Well, welcome back to the shed, and I've got an ancient Hitachi Japanese Cassiever, like a sort of mains-only stereo radio cassette. It looks to have been first used in Germany. It's got FTZ Proof with a little accent above the U there, number 107 over 239. 50 watts from the mains. It's a very nicely made piece of kit, as a matter of fact. Peculiar thing is you've got RCA sockets for the speakers, and yet a 5-pin DIN, European style, for the record and playback output, and also to connect your record player if you wanted to. This is a ST3401E. Now, it needed quite a few niggling things doing to it. It did go as it was, but the owner had a go at trying to replace the blown light bulbs in the radio dial with an LED strip. Well, that burnt out, and it then changed hands again, and the new owner then tried to put grain of wheat bulbs in there, more in keeping really, given the thing's age, but the only thing was that the voltage was way too low for them, so they just glimmered dimly, a bit like my brain on a good day. In addition, he'd managed to disrupt the tuning dial cord here that wraps round this. This is your tuning capacitor assembly. So it's taken a bit of fiddling about and getting to work again properly. It's had, well, among the worst playheads I've seen in a long time in it, because that's the playhead, and you can see it sort of twinkling away because it's so badly worn. It's just incredible. So all I could do was to match up one of more or less the right impedance and use that instead. But instead of the bulbs, because he wanted the VU meters lit, and oddly enough they're not lit as these things come, and the radio dial lights up only when radio is selected, which looks a bit odd when you're playing a tape or listening to it as an amp for a record player, because it looks a bit plain, shall I say, like that. So I've used warm white LEDs and suitable dropping resistors to bring the voltage down to about 3.01 it registered, which should be alright. I try to avoid using daylight white LEDs because they do tend to give a very dazzling light, and it doesn't look in keeping with the style of the machine. It might be alright for something much newer, but not really for this. There's a bit of a mystery too about this tape mechanism. Now, big heavy flywheel and built like a tank mechanism, as you see. It's got electronic motor control on a separate circuit board here. The motor is the same sort of size as the one used in 8-track players and recorders that ran on DC, but you can see on the take-up clutch pulley and also on the main flywheel there are actually 2 grooves there. Only one is in use, and indeed there's only one groove on the motor pulley, so I don't quite know what all that's about. I've oiled the end of the motor I can get at. The other end is sealed up, and all the other bearings are a bit tight and have benefited from a bit of a clean. Sprayed the record playback switches here, which change over from recording to playback. So you can say I've been quite busy with this, and this despite having done myself an injury the other day helping the missus in the garden. Well, we both did ourselves an injury, as a matter of fact, and it's buggered up my right hand a bit. I can't do some of the things that I used to do, I find, at the moment. But yeah, the good news is it will come back again. At first they didn't know if it would, but it will be coming back, thank heavens for that. So there's the finished thing, new playhead in there, and all that's been cleaned up and overhauled. Now if I switch on, and there you are, rather sort of pleasing warm glow, much like you would have got before. The bulbs that light up, whether you're showing tape or AUX, I've left alone because they are working. So if they're working and they're underrun like this is, they're going to last a long time anyway. So there's the innards of this one completed. I have to say it's quite a nice clean machine. They're a little bit confusing to get apart because there are some hidden screws here and there, but they're not really that well hidden. It's not as fiendish as some of the later Sony stuff was, or indeed some of the stuff they make today, where everything's covered up with gunge. Lovely. And no, there weren't any gungy belts in it or rubber either, so that was another good thing. So with that, I shall put it back in its casing and see you again soon.